Hello everyone, and welcome to the new episode about editing with Darktable. Since new 4.8 version of Darktable, we have one new module for color manipulation called Color Equalizer, which is quite powerful tool, and I would like to present you that module in this episode. So, let's get started. Color Equalizer module was initially designed by Aurélien Pierre, one of the developers who is not any longer part of the development team of Darktable and has his own fork of Darktable called Ansel. Then the module was reintroduced in the Darktable by maintainer of Darktable, Pascal Aubry, and quite a lot of improvement work and further development work has been done by, at the moment, one of the most active developers, Jens Hanno Schwalm. So, for what cases is this module useful? Color Equalizer module can be used for adjusting or manipulation of hue, saturation and brightness of the pixels based on their hue. We already have one module that works similarly, color zones, and you might ask yourself, why do we need one more module for the same task? This is because the module was developed especially for the so-called preformation or scene referred area, which means that it works in a huge color space, and in the contrast to the colored zones, which work in a post-formation or display referred area, we have much more room for pixel manipulation, and at the same time we also have certain gamut protection through the tone mapper that comes later in the processing chain. So, how this module works? As you can see, we have here one curve, which is quite similar to the curve that we already have in Tone Equalizer. That curve separates the whole hue range into 8 different sections, and by moving the nodes on the curve up and down, we can influence that particular hue area or pixel with that particular hue area. We can increase or decrease brightness or saturation or change the hue of that area, dependent on which what we want to change. And quite important thing is those nodes are fixed, so you cannot move them horizontally, only vertically. But what you can do, you can move those nodes or the whole curve about 23 degrees up and down that whole hue range. So I would like to start to demonstrate how to work with that module, and we will talk about details on the go. This is the photo of one of my last photo assignments, and as you can see, we have here one speaker who is talking to audience, and I would like to improve the colors, white balancing, and also the brightness of the photo. So we will start with lens correction and color calibration for white balancing first. Let me choose some board material, something like that. And we have now this situation. I could add a bit more brightness to the photo. And now I can use color equalizer for further improvement of the photo. Now I would like to use color equalizer to darken his suite and also to brighten a little bit the colors of the face or skin colors, and maybe improve the colors around. So to be able to do that, I first need to know which kind of hue is his suit, for example, if I want to darken it. And for this case, we have here color picker on the side of the color equalizer. And now we click on the color picker. We can now choose that area. And we have that white line, which indicates which kind of hue has this suit. We can also choose the area if we press Control key, and I can disable now the color picker and press the Control key and color picker. Now we can choose the area. In this case, we don't need it. We need only just a normal point. And now, as you can see, I would like to darken that area, but the node is not there yet. So we need to adjust the node placement so that I have that node directly here where we have that hue of the suit. So let's move the node. I think it would be good to move it here, about 50 degrees. And now I can use the node and move it down in the brightness tab to darken that area. So just to drag it with the mouse. And we have different options how we can do that. We can also use some shortcuts. If we hover over the node, we can now use and pressing the Control key or Shift key, excuse me, we can move it up and down with mouse wheel. And when we use Control key, we can also do that, but much slowly, much precisely if we need that. The other option is to press the right mouse button, and now we can add some number, or also use the arrow keys on the keyboard for that. So there's different options. How can you use to move the node up and down? Okay, in this case, I will just use left mouse button pressed and go down. And you can immediately see we have issue here on his suit. As you can see, we have those moire stripes, and these stripes get enhanced by moving the down. You can see it doesn't look quite nice. Now we have already enabled guided filter. If I disable it, it will be even worse and more worse. But we now can use one of these sliders, and this slider called hue analysis radius can help us to improve this situation. So what this hue analysis radius guided filter does, we have now chosen those blue pixels with the blue color, but because we have that moire stripes and also quite a lot of noise, we are not darkening all pixels around. And now we can use hue analysis radius. That is a radius which can help us not to use directly the pixel itself, but also small area around the pixel. So let me maybe paint it a little bit. What that means, so let's say we have blue pixels, and if we only darken those, the rest around those pixels will not be touched. But when we use now guided filter for analysis, that means which pixel should be taken into account. We are not using the pixel itself, but a small area around them, maybe something like that, so that we have the whole area around those pixels covered. And that can help us if we have, for example, difficulties with those issues for example, noise or moire stripes. Now we have improved that. And I would like also to brighten the face. So let's see, what do we have? Did that area? That's about there, nice. You can immediately go up with that. A bit, oh, not too much, and be careful not to go too far. And as you may see, just with those two moves, with those two nodes, we have improved the photo quite a lot. What I would also like to do, I would like to remove a little bit of saturation of that greenish background and maybe this purple. So let's see, let's go to the saturation tab and see where do we have those greens. Let me see here. Now we can lower the saturation in that area. And that area is not that much prominent. Maybe also the pinkish thingy. Let me see, where do we have this? Now we can go down there. So we need to be careful not to desaturate, because they're connected, as you can see. Not to desaturate too much the face. So I will say maybe a bit less. And maybe in the last step, I would like to change the color of the face, which is quite red, a little bit. So we go to the hue area. We have the same node in the hue area. And I would like to move it up to the yellow from the red area, just a tiny bit, maybe like that. But as you may see, it's quite a lot. The range is quite huge, so it changed everything around the red. And now we have another slider, especially for hue. We cannot use it for others. We have here hue curve slider. And now I can tighten that selection around that point a little bit by moving the hue curve down. As you can see, now we have steep curve. Let me demonstrate real quick. Now we have bright and quite steep. In this case, we don't want to go too far, just tiny bit. Small change. And we are good. Can use now color balance RGB just to improve a little bit overall saturation and contrast, maybe that far. Let me see. And I will also use now also denoising. I didn't want to use denoising because I want to demonstrate that that hue analysis radius, which is quite important. So if you denoise your photo, you will be able to use color balance, color equalizer much better. So that will be one of the first suggestions that needs to be done before we use this module, is to make all possible corrections done, especially denoising. If you don't do that, you will increase that noise even more with color equalizer. So do that first. In this case, I have, for demonstration purposes, skipped that point, but it is quite important to do that first. Okay. And let me see before and after. Or we can just enable and disable color equalizer so you can see how great improvement we have in this photo just with one instance of color equalizer and color balance RGB. So this is quite a powerful tool. But we have a few more sliders, and I would like to explain them also. So let's use another example. In this second example, I would like to enhance a little bit our main motif here, that wooden elephant, and darken the greens. And to be able to do that, I will first make some corrections. Especially important is denoising, as I said before. And now we can improve a bit more the brightness. I don't think we need to white balance the photo. White balancing is okay. And now we can immediately use a color equalizer for darkening the greens and maybe a little bit the blues in the sky. So first thing, we need to use color picker to find the hue of the greens. That's about there. So I don't think we need to move much or nodes. Now I can go to the brightness tab and darken the greens. I will do that quite a lot just to be able to demonstrate the functionality. As you can see, we have now darkened greens, but the transitions are quite contrasty, quite harsh, because we have chosen only the greens, and now we would like to improve that, to smooth that result. And therefore, we have that guided filter. There's always on, but now we have quite a small radius, and now we can use this slider here, effect radius, to improve the radius of the, or to brighten the radius, or widen the radius, excuse me, of the guided filter. And you will see immediately what that does. As you can see, now we have nice and smooth result. This is the guided filter that has been used for processing, so to say, for the output. It's the difference between this guided filter here and that by hue analysis radius. The hue analysis radius, we have used that just to choose the pixel that should be manipulated, or better to say, the area around the pixel, small area around the pixel, defined by that radius in hue radius here by analysis. And now we are adding some guided filter radius to the processing result, practically to the output. That is this effect radius. As you can see, we have now quite contrasty and less contrasty look just by moving or by enhancing or increasing that radius. So let's see here the difference. As you can see, it's nice and smooth transition. So now we can darken also the sky a little bit, or just that blue area. I need to find approximately that. Oh, I want to darken it. The hue section. And what I would also like to do, maybe add a bit more saturation in the yellow of that elephant, wooden elephant. So let's see, where do we have the node for that? And I think this is the node, so we can increase just a tiny bit the saturation, maybe just a bit more brightness, but not too much, because I don't want to add the brightness also in this area here. And we have practically improved the brightness of the colors. Maybe what I could do, now I can play a little bit also with the hue, so add some kind of color grading for the greens. So let's say I would like to have a bit more bluish greens. So I can go up here just a tiny bit. And now it looks quite nice. So you can see with effect radius and guided filter, if I disable guided filter, we have quite harsh. Sometimes you want to have that, but if you don't want that, if you want nice smooth transitions, you can use the effect radius or guided, enable guided filter and increase the effect radius. So We can go now to the color balance RGB just to improve overall saturation and brightness. And I will say, very good, our elephant is much more prominent in the photo. So let's see before and after. We can start with lens correction here, take a snapshot, and you see the result is quite nice. Okay, we have more sliders here. Let's talk about those in the next example. In this photo here, we have a nice, interesting leaves with nice and interesting texture. And I would like to enhance the texture of these leaves. And I can also do that with the help of color equalizer. So let's start as always with denoising and lens correction. And I would like to add a bit more brightness to the photo, let's say about there. And I also think that it's not important to white balance the photo. The white balancing is okay. So we can go directly to our color equalizer. And I would like to darken the green areas. So I will go a bit more near to one of the leaves, this one. And let me choose the hue with our color picker. That's about here, some kind of yellowish green. And I would like to adjust the node placement. So I would like to place it exactly in that area. And now I can darken that leaf. As you can see, immediately we have quite a nice contrast. And the texture of the leaf get enhanced. But I would like to improve that even more. And now we have two sliders which can help us for that. In this case, saturation threshold and also contrast. Now what the saturation threshold does, I can demonstrate you by enable that indicator here, that icon here. If I click on that, you will see what saturation or what pixel have been chosen by the saturation. As you can see, we have here some blue areas. That means those pixels doesn't have enough saturation to be included into the processing. And with saturation threshold, I can manipulate that. For example, let's go back to the leaf even more near. I can disable that picker. And this area, darker area of the leaves where we have that nice texture, are also more saturated than those greens in the brighter areas of the leaf. Now I can, with help of saturation threshold, move the threshold up and exclude all those pixels, so all those greens in the leaf that doesn't have that much saturation. So practically I now have selected only high saturated area of those greens in the leaves, something like that. And that can help me, as you can see, if I move up and down, to add a bit more texture in the leaves. Can go even more darker. Now we have everything selected, and every area, every green area will be influenced. And if we move it to the right, we're excluding those pixels that doesn't have that much saturation. And now we that way increase also the texture. Now we can also improve the transition between saturated and desaturated area or steepness of that transition by using contrast slider. I will enable that again. And if I move contrast slider, now you see that we have quite steep transition between those areas in blue areas, which are pixel, they are not included, and red areas. And you can see that also on the thin green curve here. I hope you can recognize it. This is the curve. It's quite steep curve transition between saturated and the saturated area. And we can also move that in the other direction, the contrast. And as you can see, the steepness of the curve is not that high. Oh, excuse me, that was wrong. I want to do that. See, it's not that steep. But now you can manipulate that two sliders to get a nice result. And in this case, I can also add a bit radius so that I have some kind, so that I don't have that sharp transitions. And in this case, we have not only, or we are not able only to add that contrast, the local contrast by darkening the greens, but also a nice saturation. So if I go to saturation tab now and increase saturation in that area, let me find it, yeah, here. We can add to those leaves also nice saturation, which follows a little bit our perception. So in the darker areas, we perceive the things more saturated than in the brighter areas. And that of this way, you can add saturation in those areas so that it looks much more natural, that you don't have that oversaturated look. I can go quite high here without impression that we have oversaturated photo. And now I can improve that even better. With color balance RGB, I can go even higher with contrasts, maybe add even more saturation in shadows and midtones. And now we have a nice texture on the leaf. Look the difference if I disable now color equalizer. That's a huge difference just with color equalizer and manipulation of the saturation threshold and contrast of, or that steepness of that curve. So that can be quite useful in this case. And there's also other cases. We will now try to experiment a little bit with other examples. And one quite important thing is also, if you're using effect radius, you can also use indicator that can show you exactly what has been done. In this case, that indicator for effect radius, if you have red pixels, that means you have increased the value in that area. For example, I have added saturation in the greens there. And if I go in the brightness tab, I have darkened those greens, and that means those pixels are blued here. So that is also a nice visualization, excuse me, of the area which has been influenced and on what kind of influence. Okay, so let's see again. Let's start with lens correction. You will see, or maybe exposure, you will immediately see the difference. The difference is really, really huge. So these adjustments here, guided filter, saturation threshold, are not quite big, but these are quite nice and fine things that can improve your manipulation of the pixels quite a lot. So you don't just increasing or decreasing the value or changing the hue, but you have also some kind of precise things that you can use here to improve it even better. Okay, let's see a few other examples. In this example here, we will see a nice interplay between saturation threshold and effect radius for a guided filter. And to be able to demonstrate that, as always, I need to start with some adjustments. And the task here is to brighten a little bit the pumpkins without influencing the rest of the photo. And now we can go to the color equalizer and find the area that need to be influenced. So there is some kind of orangey here. And first thing, we need to adjust the nodes. And I would like to brighten the pumpkin. So let's go a bit more near, so that you can see what happens. And if I do that with brightness tab, if I move that node up, we have now brightened that area. But as you can see, we have lost some of details. If I go back and do that again, now we can improve that by smoothing that result with help of the guided filter. So we can go to the effect radius and increase that. And as you can see immediately, we are getting back our details because we have now the smooth transitions. Excuse me. But as you also can see, we have some kind of bleeding into the other areas, into the wall here. And I need to address that also. So that haloing. And now we can use saturation threshold because the wall is not that saturated as our pumpkin. And if we move the saturation threshold up, we can reduce the influence only on high saturated area, which are the areas of the pumpkin itself. Now we can play a little bit with contrast, maybe go a bit down so that we don't have sharp edges here. And now we have improved real quick with just a few sliders and that one node, the brightness of the pumpkins. Look at that. That is crazy. So I don't think we need another improvement. So let's see before and after. I don't know what to start. Maybe lens correction. Nice and smooth and quick. So the color equalizer can help you to improve. Of course, this is too much. I wouldn't do that, but for demonstration purposes that you can see the difference, it's a quite nice example. As you can see, with saturation threshold and effect radius, we have improved our brightening of the area quite a lot. That wouldn't be possible if we don't use the guided filter. As you can see, we have that flat look, and the difference is quite huge. And that nice interplay between saturation threshold and effect radius can also be good demonstrated or quite useful for portraits. And so let's see a few more examples with portraits. With this portrait here, I would like to achieve a nice, high key look. So soft and flat. And first things first, as always, lens correction and denoising. And I can also improve a bit on white balancing. Maybe we can use this area. Now we have improved our colors in terms of white balance. And now I can use color equalizer to get that nice high key look. So I need to find the area that I would like to influence to brighten, and that is these darker areas of the skin. So I can use color picker and approximately find the hue that is about here, or some kind of reddish orangey. And I would also like to adjust the node placement about there. Now I can go to the brightness tab and brighten that area. So let's go up. And as you can see, we are brightening everything that is that has this hue. Also this area in the face, they are already bright. Now I would like to correct that in the term that I don't want to brighten that already bright area too much. So I can use now saturation threshold to exclude those pixels which are in the bright areas of the skin, because these pixels don't have that much saturation. As you can see, if I move saturation threshold up and down, how I'm influencing the area that will be influenced. And I can also use the contrast to smooth the things down, and also a bit of guided filter. So let me play with that. I think here, a bit here. So we have now brightened practically, as you can see, the hair and those darker skin tones, and we have a little bit flatter look. We can improve that even more if we use now contrast equalizer, which is before in the pipeline, and smooth the texture. Maybe not go too far, something like that. As you can see, we have now brightened only those areas with high saturation and didn't touch the already bright area in the face. We can improve that even more with color balance RGB. We can add some midtones and just a tiny bit of highlights. And I think what I also can do, let me go back to color equalizer, I can also desaturate a little bit that area. So let me do that real quick, so that we have even more that high key impression, something like that. Let me play a bit with these adjustments, and I can also go to the sigmoid module and go with the target white a little bit down, so that I have dynamic range a little bit tightened, and also target black a bit up. So we have that nice analog look, as you can see. Just the color equalizer, we have now that nice high key look. Let me see before and after. So let's start with denoising and go to the last step. And as you can see, for example, in these areas here of the skin, we have also improved that texture. Oh, let me do that again. I have disabled text snapshot. Why do we start here? You can see we don't have that harsh local contrast. Also nice and smooth. High key. And we can do the opposite. So let's go with another example. In this case, I would like to improve a bit depth in the portrait of the woman here. So let's start with lens correction and denoising. And I will also improve the brightness a bit, maybe to this level. And now we can use color equalizer to that improvement. So what we like to achieve, we want to get the darker area even more darker, so that we have the nice difference between brighter and darker areas, but just a tiny touch, not too much. And now we can use our color equalizer for that. So I want to darken this area. I need to adjust the nodes. And I can go and move that node down. And as you can see, we are darkening quite a lot, but I will darken every area in the face. I don't want to do that. I just want to darken already darker areas. So we can now use a saturation threshold and move it up to exclude those already bright areas in the face. And as you can see, we have only those darker areas, influence only darker areas. Now we can maybe decrease a little bit contrast and also add some effect radius to smooth the things down. Maybe something like that. As you can see now, the cheek and this area in the hands are influenced, and that is what I would like to do. And I can also now add some saturation there. Let me improve a little bit the curves. Saturation there. In this area. And now we have that impression of higher saturation, although not everything is saturated. Let me disable that color picker. And what I would also like to do, I can go to the hue now and change the hue of that area towards magenta, just a touch. And also tighten the hue curve. So we don't want to influence the rest, the yellow parts that much, which are somewhere here. So we need to tighten that curve. So let me see, about there. I hope you can see the difference, because that area is too yellowish, too much to my taste. And what I can also can do now, I can also change the color of that blue skirt. I don't know how to call it. So let's see, what do we have? That jeans thing. It's about there. Okay, now I cannot put the node there, but it doesn't matter because we have only the blue area around, so we can go with those 2 points down and we'll have a similar result. And now we have not only to change the appearance of the face and add some contrast there, but also have some nice color grading. Maybe we can tighten the curve a bit more. Yeah, that's better. Because I want this area to stay in the color and in the brightness as they are, but only the rest, the influence only the rest. And of course, you can also use contrast equalizer to smooth a little bit the look overall. And of course, use color balance RGB to improve the contrast even better. Maybe add some saturation in shadows and remove it, not that much, just a tiny bit, and remove it from the highlights. About there, where I will say. And same as before, maybe I can also go to 4-way tab and just to brighten a little bit the shadows there. And I think we're done. As you can see with color equalizer, we have influenced only an important part of the face, not the whole face, although the face have the same hue, but through that restriction to the saturation, to the higher saturation area, we have now nice depth in the face. And also we have been able to change the hue a little bit and adjust it to that portrait. The only thing that I didn't mention, we now know every slider, what I'm doing, except this one, white level. White level can help you if you want to restrict the brightening of some pixels. to special area. For example, if I don't want to brighten this area that too much, or restrict that area doesn't get brightened by brightening, I can choose the color picker and choose that area, and now we have that restriction to there. But I didn't find really the good examples, so I think the white level point is not that important for most of the cases. If I find some, maybe I can demonstrate it in the next episode. But in this case, I think you can actually ignore that slider for readjustments. Or if you find some interesting example, you can write to me, or you can add a comment into the comment section. And the other thing that I didn't mention is you need to be careful also. If you use all those sliders, you can have some hallowing on the transitions between those areas that are influenced and those that are not. So be careful to don't do too much, or try to use the masks. And by the way, all those things what we have used here, except the guided filter, saturation, threshold, contrast, could also be done with parametric masks. But I think those improvements here are quite easy to achieve, and I think it's quite nice improvement nevertheless for that new module. So I think we can finish now here, and if you have some questions, be free to ask me in the comment section, or go to the pixel.us discussion forum and ask your questions there. So thank you for watching, and until the next episode, bye bye.